Where's my squishy? Hi guys, I am in a comfortable chair, have my squishmallow. I'm in a comfortable position because today I wanted to talk about something that's pretty sensitive to me, something I've been struggling with personally, and I just hope that in our conversation, in our session, if you will, today, that I could help you out and also kind of help myself while talking to you, because a lot of times I give some pretty solid advice, but I don't kind of take my own advice and practice my own things, but I kind of just wanted to touch on anxiety. Like here recently, I've been going through a lot of anxiety, and it's not so much like bad anxiety to where it's like crippling or I can't function. It's just overcrowdedness in my mind, a lot that's going on in my brain that I can't really ground myself and control my thoughts and kind of take one thing at a time. It's gotten to the part where I'm like thinking of many things at a time. Like even talk to you right now, I have 80 different conversations going on in my head. 80 is just a random number to kind of to portray that a lot's going on in my brain. I just said 80. It's probably more than that, but 80 different things going on in my brain right now that all kind of help get out what I'm trying to say, but also things I have to go do after this video. Also things I'm doing tomorrow. So it's hard for me to kind of ground myself, to be in the moment and not to overthink. I'm a big overthinker. I overthink everything. It's bad. A lot of times it's bad. In my relationships, my friendships, it's bad because I'll just hear, or a person will choose one thing and it'll be stuck on my mind. It'll be stuck on my mind, bro, and I cannot get rid of it. It'll take days. It'll take days to get off my mind. And just kind of relating that back to you, it could be anything you have going on, something coming up. But what has helped for me is to find things that are grounding, things that are definite. For me, things that are definite tend to help my anxiety. So let's just say you're going in for surgery, right? And you're nervous. A good thing you have anxiety about it. A good thing about it, or a good thing that'll help your anxiety, is to kind of find something that's grounding. Like I said, something that's definite. So an example of that would be to look up on your surgery that you're having. Hey, my surgery has a 95% success rate. That's great. Now I don't have to worry as much as all the bad things. What could happen? I know that 95% of people that go through their surgery are great. They're fine, Or whether it be communication with your partner, whoever, you're worried about them doing this, you're worried about doing that. It's as simple as just having a conversation that if there's something else on your mind that worries you, is to have that conversation, to have that definitive answer, so I don't have to overthink and I don't have to go through scenarios in my head. And I know a lot of times, depending on what the case may be, it's not always easy to have those conversations. It's not always easy to bring up soft areas because you don't want to be the type of person that's always stirring something up, if that makes sense. But at the same time, if it's troubling your mind, you have to protect your mind at all costs, because if you don't have your mind, you have nothing. I'm just gonna put it out there. For me, my mind, if I could just give you a piece, just a sliver of my brain for 24 hours, you would fall to your knees. I promise you. If you just take a small portion of my brain for 24 hours, you would wonder, how in the hell do I operate every day? And what can I tell you? I don't know. I don't know how I operate. I don't know how I go about my day to day, And just like now, I'm trying to gather my thoughts and my words on how I'm going to progress through this video. So if you see a cut, that's why. But that was just a few examples on, you know, how anxiety works. And I'm not diagnosing you. I'm not saying you have anxiety, but some people, they'll have things going on in their lives, and they'll say it's other things. They'll say it's depression. They'll say it's ADHD, and they'll say it's ADD, and you may very well have those things. I'm not diagnosing you, but I'm just saying, and even if you have those things, these tools and these tactics could help, you know? But yeah, grounding yourself, just to find definitive answers on something that your mind may be struggling and racing with, you know? And the other thing is to meditate, to pray, whatever you do, whatever makes you happy, do that. That'll help you. I struggle with something called anxious attachment. So whether that be in a friendship, a relationship, anything like that, I'm a really attached person to whoever that other person may be. I'm really attached. And a lot of times it's bad. Like, they won't respond for that's absurd. Let's say 2 hours or an hour. I'm like, oh my God, they're talking to someone else. You know what I mean? Or, oh my God, they don't want to talk to me. I'm annoying to them. It'll just be just a small amount of time, and my brain will automatically just switch to the worst possible scenario. And practices, what I do is to kind of keep myself busy, because what you got to realize is that people have lives. It's not always a bad thing. It's not always the worst possible answer to something. So it's to kind of give your mind activities, things to think about, and get off technology. Technology doesn't help, bro. It doesn't. I thought, oh, I can go get on TikTok. I can go do something else. But on TikTok shows you all this. It's like TikTok knows what you're thinking. TikTok shows you all this stuff, and you're like, how do you know I'm going through that, TikTok? And 95% of the stuff TikTok shows you is just sad stuff. It's just things that's going to make your anxiety worse. So get off the electronics, go paint a picture, you know, embrace your inner childhood, go color something. I've done that recently. I just finished coloring stuff. Or go outside, you know, clean your room up, go do some chores or something to kind of have your mind active, so you're not thinking about all the worst possibilities. That's just some things I employ when I have anxious attachments in relationships. And it can also look like thinking that you're not worthy for someone, that you're answering your self-worth through how they give their time to you, if that makes sense. To kind of break that down is saying, oh, they haven't texted me for 2 hours, I must not be worth the conversation, if that makes sense. Or I must not be worth the time of day. Or I'm boring, I'm not a good conversationalist. You cannot determine your value on what you contribute to a relationship because of how they treat you. Now, I'm not saying that is for all relationships and all things, that it varies from person to person or situation to situation, because in some instances you could be the person who is dry, who's not really texting back. If they ask you how your day is, you just say good. I'm not saying in that situation, of course things need to be worked on if that's happening, but what I'm saying is you can't put your value on the way that someone gives their time to you. That's something they have to work on within themselves. Like, if they don't have time for you, that's something they have to work on in them schedules. You cannot make people have time for you. You have to sit back and you have to let them come to you. If you ever feel like you're contributing 90, 80, 70% of the relationship, it shouldn't be that way. It should be 50-50, 60-40 at the most. You know? People's schedules are different. That's why you kind of have to compromise, and you have to do certain tangles, certain dances, depending on relationship to relationship. But I say all that just to say that in your own mind, in your own thoughts, that you cannot give your value through how someone else is treating you. Okay, and that just ties. I'm trying to anchor myself here, so I don't go on a tangent. That just ties back to what I was saying about that in your mind about that this person's not reaching back out to me, you know? Uh, but on the flip side of that, you have another instance where you are overly like talking to them, or you're overly there. That's another form of anxiousness, that you feel like if you're not present 24/7 all the time, that they're going to leave you. And that's not always the case. A lot of times what will happen is you'll get into certain areas in a relationship where you kind of have to step away. And not in the sense of, hey, we need a break, but you need to have your own alone time to work on yourself so that you make sure you're contributing 100% of all of your effort in the relationship. Because it's really easy to get relaxed. It's really easy to just kind of fall in the sway of things, you know? I call it checking a box. So it's really easy to kind of just say you've done something to say for the sake of saying that you've done it. And I can feel myself drifting. So let me tie that back to what I was saying. But just overly being there because you're in fear that the person's going to leave, or that you're in fear that if I'm not present, that means they're talking to someone else. And I've struggled with that multiple times. That if I'm not texting them 24/7, if I'm not reaching out 24/7, that they're going to get bored of me and they're going to reach out to someone else. And that's not always the case. And that's why another instance of that is why it's always good to have open communication with the person that you're with. And I know I'm putting an emphasis on relationships because that's just what I've experienced, but you can also relate this to friendships. Like if you're trying to make a friendship with someone, or you're trying to become best friends and you have competition of that, don't be overly present, if that makes sense, because you might scare someone off doing that. Or on the other side of that, don't be the avoidant person who's anxiously avoidant, which means they are afraid of any kind of intimacy. It could be platonic, it could be, on the other side of that. And in that is to, like I was saying earlier, is to kind of, again, find definites. And those definites are only found in communication, in conversation. To say, hey, I'm an anxiously attached person, or I'm an anxiously avoidant person. And a lot of times this is kind of stuff you need to be having in the conversation, or these are the kind of things that this is the conversation that you need to have before you say yes to a relationship. That this is what I'm bringing to the table. These are the things that I struggle with. I struggle with anxiety. If this is a make or break for you, then I'm sorry, we're just not going to work. But I need someone that is going to be able to kind of handle what I struggle with. And that's just multiple factors of dealing with anxiousness on relationships. Another form of anxiousness and another trick with that is to reach out. If you're anxious about something, it may be something coming up, something you don't know about. A lot of anxiety is kind of paralleled with fear. It's a double-sided coin. It's two different things on the same coin. You guys know what a coin is. You know what it is. It's two different faces. It can show different ways, but it's on the same coin. It can front itself. It can present itself several different ways, but it's on the same coin. It's one within the same. So you could have anxiousness, or you can be anxious and be fearful at the same time. Because really, at the heart of it, that's what anxiousness is. It's the fear of whatever's coming, whatever I'm on my way to. In those moments where you are fearful of something, it's always good to reach out to someone who has insight or who has knowledge on that. Again, to ground yourself and to know the definites of what I'm about to step into. This could be a job. This could be a new job coming up. You're anxious about it. Let's say you lied on your resume. You don't know all the things you know about it. Okay, reach out to someone in that field that may know. Excuse me. Or you can, and another instance of that would be if let's say you are, I don't know, a good example. Let's say you're an actor or an actress. You got this job, or you got this gig, I should say, and you have never acted in that kind of space, in that kind of way. Like, you have stand up, you have people who act on TV, you have people who do movies, you have people who do commercials. I'm just kind of trying to reach all the audiences out there, trying to get into every niche and niche I can. That you have something coming up and you just can't, you can't really work with that. My timer's going off saying, Elijah, stop talking. And you can't really take a grasp on what you're bringing in or what you're about to step into. It's to kind of get in on with someone who has gone through what you're about to go through, who's seasoned, who's experienced in what you're about to do. Hopefully that makes sense. It's just anxiousness a lot of time is fear of the future. And for some people, this is like, we'll put this as the third tidbit. For some people, it may get so bad, it may get so crippling that you need medication. I feel like I may need that in sometimes, because it gets to the point where I can't think about everyday tasks. Like, when you're scared, you're manually breathing to calm yourself down. You're going, okay, in, and you're going, okay, out. Like, of course you don't do it that slowly, but you're manually breathing. You're no longer, things aren't autonomous anymore. You have to kind of think about things before you do it, because your mind is just so tensed. In those times, you may need to seek further help. You may need medication. And again, I am not diagnosing you. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm only advising you. I just have to put that disclaimer out there for legal reasons. Like, if someone sues me because they went and got medication and it was damaging to them. But yeah, in those instances, like, if it gets to a point where you cannot function, or you can't think about how you think about, or you can't think about how you do things on a day-to-day basis, then you need to probably reach out and get some medication. And there were times in my life, and there are still times in the present day, where I feel like I may need to get something to calm me down, because I'll get in my head so bad that I can't think normally. I can't do things normally, that I'll shut down. I'll go in my room and lock the door. I'll fall asleep, or I'll just turn my phone off completely and just block out the whole world. And sometimes, of course, being alone is great. But in those moments where you have things coming at you, you have a lot of different voices. I'm not saying you're schizophrenic. I'm just saying voices as in a lot of scenarios playing in your mind, that you probably do need someone from the outside to speak to you, to kind of calm you down, to ground you. Again, there's that word. To bring you back to reality, to say, hey, we need to calm down here. I'm here to help. Okay. But in my closing, of course I'm over my time. Those were just some little pieces, some little nuggets that I use to calm down my anxious self. Hopefully this helped you guys. This is only my second video in this series of just kind of sitting in the camera and talking. The other one, I think everyone liked pretty well. I think it's at like 15 views, which for a channel that I haven't touched in months is pretty good. But thank you guys for listening again. I will see y'all in the next one of these, or whatever I post next. Also, guys, I go live on TikTok now. I do TikTok live, which is great because it's blowing up. But until next time, guys, see ya.